ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
Hi, Jules and Jez here, and every week on Not Stupid, we unpack the news of the week.
From the stuff that matters to the stories you're obsessed with.
And there's a heck of a lot of women in the Liberal Party who won't say publicly that they support it. Or when they leave, they say we should think about it.
Oh, politicians say all sorts of things when they leave.
You can find Not Stupid on the ABC Listen app.
It's the battle of the billionaires. Elon Musk's once firm grasp on the EV market seems to be crumbling as Tesla's sales slump. So bring in Jeff Bezos. The Amazon founder wants to give Elon a run for his money, investing in an electric ute. Today, Giles Parkinson, founder and editor of Renew Economy and The Driven, on how it could be a game changer in the market. I'm Sam Hawley on Gadigal Land in Sydney. This is ABC News Daily. Giles, the Amazon founder and billionaire Jeff Bezos, he's decided to take on Elon Musk in the EV market, which is quite frankly a pretty good time, right? Because Tesla sales have been tanking.
They have indeed. Tesla sales have been falling around the world, including in Australia. If we go back just about 18 months ago, Tesla, had a market share of well over 50%, 68% as recently as January 2023. And that's been declining steadily over the last 18 months. Now, mostly that's because of increased competition. So we've got a lot more EV models in Australia. But there's been issues in the last 6 months, one with the reputation of Elon Musk and his political posturings and the support for right-wing parties. And then the retooling of the factories for the new Model Y. But this move by Jeff Bezos is quite fascinating. It's an electric ute called Slate.
This is a Slate. This Slate seats 2 and can carry sheets of plywood. This Slate seats 5.
Which, ironically, is actually an anagram of Tesla.
Oh, yes.
Which is a delightful touch.
Do you think they did that on purpose?
I think they might have.
Yes.
Who knows? And look, it promises to deliver an electric ute, a low-cost, no-frills ute.
We took out everything that wasn't a car.
That means no fancy screen, colored lighting, cooled seats, self-driving, self-parking, automatic cup holders. Yes, that's a thing.
But you can
Look,
add accessories.
they're saying 27,000 US, which translates to about 43,000 Australian.
So it's quite cheap relatively in the market because the EV trucks, or utes, as we like to call them, of course, are pretty expensive, aren't they, right now?
Oh, they're hugely expensive. If you look in Australia, we basically don't have any options for fully electric utes in Australia. There's a couple of imported ones, the Ford Lightning, which is about $200,000.
Wow.
In the US, there's about 3 or 4 options, like Tesla's Cybertruck, which is from about 60,000 US to 100,000 US, the Ford Lightning, which is about a similar range, and the Rivian. So what Bezos is actually offering is less than half the price.
Yeah.
So that's going to be really interesting. And it's gotten 150,000 orders over the last 2 weeks since it was first unveiled, which shows the interest. Now, it's just a $50 deposit and it's fully refundable, so it doesn't really translate into sales. But look, that just shows the potential interest that's out there.
Sure is. And the thing is, this Slate truck, it's pretty quirky, isn't it? Just tell me about the design of it.
Well, it's pretty small, so think about that. In Australia, you see lots of utes around the place now, and they're usually dual cabs, so you can see 4 people or a family. This one's a single cab, so just 2 people. The tray is actually pretty small, just a little over half the size of, say, a Toyota Hilux, so it's not a big tray. And inside, it's just basically the bare minimum. There's not even any speakers for the sound system. There's no electric digital screen. There's wind-up windows. You can make them electric, but you've got to pay more. There's fabric seats. You can make them nicer, but you've got to pay more. But look, that's a really interesting concept, because if you think about cars that are sold now, we try to sell people car makers are trying to sell you as much as possible, and then they kind of take away a few things to make it sound a bit cheaper for those who can't quite make that price. What Bezos is doing is a bit of a rethink of, well, let's make a car really, 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 really cheap, make it as basic as possible. And if people want to make it slightly better, then they can pay more and they can add an electric window and nicer seats and a screen and sound system.
And also the thing is, you can turn this ute into an SUV. It's like Lego.
Like Lego or a Transformer, I think, is the kids' way thing. Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? You just add things. So, they're just all talking about this basic product and, you want to make it into an SUV. We'll just put something on the back of it and get another seat or fold it down or put something else down. And we haven't really seen the details of that.
No.
But, it's a fascinating concept. We're not going to see it actually being made commercially until the end of next year. So they're kind of teasing it.
Yeah. So Jeff Bezos, he's backing this idea, this startup, and it really is taking on Musk, is it? Because of that, it's a very different concept in the EV market.
What it is, look, Musk promised for many, many years to sort of deliver a really low-cost EV, and there's a great expectation that he would deliver one as cheap as $25,000 American or $20,000 American. Some even said $15,000 American. He hasn't delivered that. In fact, he hasn't really delivered very much the last few years. There's the Model 3 and the Model Y. They're great cars, but they're about $40,000 or more US and, sort of in the 60s in Australia. And he's done the Cybertruck, but that hasn't gone really well. And this low-cost Tesla has never really emerged. Now, there's talk of it being kind of, they're working frantically to produce this. And maybe that's because they've been driven by the competition, this new competition from Bezos. I mean, no other American company has challenged Tesla with a low-cost electric product. Ford and Chrysler and General Motors, and others have come in, but their cars have been pretty ordinary and expensive. No one's come in and attacked, what you would describe as Tesla's weak spot. A US-made, US-sourced, including the batteries, low-cost EV. Now, whether they can pull it off we'll wait and see, but it's pretty interesting.
Okay, well, let's turn to Australia then. We don't know, of course, yet if this Slate ute or Slate truck will ever actually make it here, but we do love our utes, don't we? So an EV version, I would think, would be in pretty high demand.
I think it would be in huge demand, but I'm not too sure we're going to go for a small ute. Now we just seem to be going into this we've gone into this sort of giganticism. We don't want just a ute now. We want a dual cab ute so we can put the whole family in it. Now, look, a lot of that has been driven by tax advantages. Tradies can go out and get a ute and get big tax advantages, and they can basically use it as the family car. So whether we go for a smaller one, I don't know. What Australia desperately needs is an electric ute, though. That's competitively priced.
Yeah, and of course all those big utes that we see were largely thanks to Scott Morrison, of course. And back in 2019, he did make the point, didn't he, that perhaps EVs really wouldn't be able to do the job that the ute would do. They wouldn't be able to pull a trailer, was his words.
It's not going to tow your trailer. It's not going to tow your boat. It's not going to get you out to your favourite camping spot with your family. Bill Shorten wants to end the weekend when it comes to his policy on electric vehicles, where you've got Australians...
Well, look, that's all been proved to be nonsense. You're now seeing EVs coming out which are perfectly capable of pulling boats and doing other things. We have not yet seen electric utes, but we've seen some pretty solid electric cars, with pretty big batteries that can do all that. And I think there's been so many trips around Australia and so many people going on long-distance holidays and things that have sort of proven that. But you know what? I think we kid ourselves in Australia about how much we like to drive and how much we drive. There's actually some statistics that come out and shows that Australians, on average, drive a lot less than people in Europe and people in the US. Like on average, it's about 14,000 kilometres a year compared to 18,000 kilometres in Europe and over 20,000 in the US. So we've kind of convinced ourselves, because we go on a holiday once a year and we try to drive long distance, we convince ourselves that we do all these, huge thousands of kilometres, but we don't. So we don't actually need such a big battery or maybe even such a big car. But I guess, consumers are always right.
So, Giles, let's then have a quick update on where we're up to overall when it comes to EV sales in Australia. What are we actually seeing?
Well, basically we're seeing the big fall in Tesla sales. And without that, the EV sales in Australia would have grown slightly over the last year, but because Tesla sales have sort of fallen so dramatically, that's just basically mean that the market's sort of fallen by about 30 or 40% because Tesla accounted for more than half the market. In April, in the month of April, they accounted for just 8% of the market. They only sold 500 vehicles. Now, there's a few reasons for that. There's not just the pushback against Musk or the waiting for the new Model Y, which is has started deliveries this month. There was also logistical issues, boats arriving or not arriving and things like that. So I don't expect that 8% to be repeated again, but it's going to be really interesting to see how the new Model Y goes. I imagine we'll get an initial burst. There'll be several thousand rolling out the door. What happens after that, we shall wait and see. We'd like to think that it would do well because that's important for the whole EV market. There is more competition, but not a lot of it. I mean, we calculated that there's now 100 electric vehicle models in Australia available for choice. That compares to just 7 years ago.
Wow.
Now, that's a big increase, but not a lot of them have taken up, got a lot of traction. I mean, some of them have done okay for a short period of time, but there's only been a couple of others that have done really, really well. Look, part of it's because there's lots of new brands, particularly from China, and people are unfamiliar with them, and maybe they're sort of hesitant about, a brand they've never heard of. Perhaps they'd be, more comfortable with a legacy brand that's gone electric, but the legacy brands aren't in the big rush to offer a lot of affordable electric vehicles yet.
Yeah, they're just a bit too expensive for a lot of people still. But we do have this newly re-elected, of course, Labor government that supports EVs. So what should we expect? What will it be doing to encourage EV sales?
So what car makers now have to do is to meet these sort of vehicle emission standards. And some people think they should have been tighter, but they are what they are. They are going to force anyway a lot of those car companies who are not doing very much in EVs to try and get lower polluting cars out the door. Now, some of them will try hybrids, but that won't be enough for some of them. Some of them are going to have to come up with electric cars, and they're going to have to sell those electric cars. I think you're going to see more brands coming out. I think you're going to see more lower cost EVs coming out. I think there's going to be a big rush of new models in the second half of the year and into next year. So I think the policy is probably going to have its desired effect. What we still don't know yet is, the consumer response to all that. Are they going to go for that? Because we're not forcing consumers to do it. We're just encouraging car makers to offer these products and to try and sell them.
So what do you think? How important would an electric ute, and an affordable electric ute, be in convincing people to dump their petrol vehicles in an Australian market?
I think it would be an absolute game changer. I just think it would be the thing that would really change people's minds about EVs in general. Now, we've seen some of these car companies going to plug-in hybrids. The plug-in hybrids actually have a separate motor, separate battery that can go, say, between 50 or 100 kilometres electric only. So if you're just driving around the city, which most people do, you could, spend your whole year just driving electric only and just using petrol or diesel on the long-distance trip. And we saw the release of a plug-in hybrid ute from BYD, and it was reasonably priced, just under $60,000, and that did really well. It was the third best-selling vehicle, or third best-selling ute in Australia. It sort of overtook the Isuzu. It's not fully electric, but it's kind of a bit of a stepping stone for a lot of people. So that shows the potential, I think. But when we will see a fully electric ute priced like that with the same capabilities, there's nothing immediately on the horizon, but we can be hopeful.
So how long do you think, though, Giles, until fully electric utes, are the norm on our streets?
Well, if you asked me 4 years ago, I would have said by now, but
Right.
I was obviously wrong. So I'm hoping really within about 2 or 3 years, I think. Well, it's probably going to be 2 years before we see a couple of models which are competitively priced and have the same sort of capabilities. We're kind of waiting for those legacy companies, the Toyota, the Fords, the Mitsubishis, all those ones to actually sort of make that transition. They don't seem that enthusiastic. So maybe we need sort of consumers to sort of go, hey guys, we actually want electric. Because, people's bills for diesel utes and things like that, they're just huge. It's just frightening what they're paying each week.
Very expensive to fill up the tank. So in the meantime, though, may the best billionaire win, Giles.
Yeah, well, it's going to be fascinating to watch. And there'll be no love lost between them, of course. But look, competition's a good thing. If Bezos can deliver and that inspires Tesla to respond with its own lower cost EV, even if it's not a low cost ute, or maybe they will, that's good.
Giles Parkinson is the founder and editor of Renew Economy and EV website The Driven. This episode was produced by Sydney Peed. Audio production by Adair Shepherd and Sam Dunn. Our supervising producer is David Cody. I'm Sam Hawley. Thanks for listening.